introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, I'm Daniel Dawson.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about yourself?
I'm from here, from Midland Center. I grew up here, and I used to go to college up north at Calkins College, but my life's really kind of been put on hold.
And how did you know Vanessa Sullivan?
Vanessa and I met in college. We were really, really good friends. We had the same major, and we were both pre-law, and so we had almost all of our classes together. We would study together, hang out together after class. She was really good friend.
Well, what were you doing with Vanessa on the night of September the 24th?
Well, it was her 21st birthday, and so she invited me to come back home with her and celebrate with some of her friends from high school.
What did you do to celebrate?
We went to a bar and grill. It's called Chuggy's. It's been around as long as I've lived in Midlands.
And about what time that night did you get to Chuggy's?
I got there at 2 in the afternoon. One of my relatives dropped me off on her way into town. I don't have a car, so I just figured I'd wait and see some people I hadn't seen in a while.
And about what time did you leave that night?
It was 12:45 in the morning.
So a little bit more than 10 hours.
That's right.
I have to ask you, Miss Dawson, were you drinking that night?
I was. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the jury how many drinks you had?
10.
How did you feel, Miss Dawson, when you were walking out of Chuggy's that night across the parking lot?
I felt fine. I felt like I did when I walked in. I was perfectly fine to drive.
Would you have gotten behind the wheel of that car if you thought you could be putting your friends' lives in danger?
Absolutely not. I never imagined that I would have never done that to my friends.
Ms. Dawson, I want to talk a little bit about the conditions of the road that night. Can you tell us what it was like in that car?
When I pulled out of the parking lot, it was just sprinkling a little bit. By the time I turned right off of Center Road onto Canyon Road, it just started pouring down rain. It was a huge storm. It was really hard to see.
And what was it like inside the car?
It was pretty loud. Vanessa and Taylor had a Chatterbox CD, and it was up pretty loud, and they were singing. And more than that, it was really just the rain. It was just pounding on the car. It was really loud. It was really hard to see. It was very, very dark.
Ms. Dawson, I want to talk about the accident. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah. The road is really dark, and usually there's not any lights there. There's no street lights. And I was on the road, and I saw a light off to my right, off to the right-hand side. And when I turned to look at it, because it caught my eye, it was just a porch light. It was nothing. And when I looked back at the road, there was a deer that was running across the road. And I was in a really small car, and I didn't want to hit it. So I swerved off the road onto the shoulder, and that's when the curve came up. So I just stayed on the shoulder around the curve.
How did you feel when you were driving around that curve after you saw that deer swerved off the road?
I mean, I was shaken up. It scared me, but I wanted to to get around the curve. It was really slippery. I didn't want to just try to get back on the road on the curve, so I waited. So I just drove on the shoulder for a little while.
And what happened next, Miss Dawson?
After I got around the curve, I did try to get back on the road. But when I turned it to my left, I felt the traction go out from under me, and I was hydroplaning, and I couldn't. I tried to turn, and I couldn't, and car was just spinning, and I tried everything, but it wouldn't stop. And next thing, I had an airbag in my face, and everything just went quiet.
So what did you do, Miss Dawson, when you hit that tree?
At first I just didn't realize what happened. And I pushed the airbag out of my face, and I got out of the car, and I just started screaming for help.
Did help come?
London Bennett, he lives on the road, came and he told me he called 911 and that help was on the way.
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, this is not hearsay. This is an exception to hearsay. Under 8032, a fatal crash had just occurred. This is an excited utterance.
Sustained. And I ask that the previous record be stricken from, the previous statement be stricken from the record.
I don't believe there's an answer. If there was, let the record show that will be struck in the record.
Miss Dawson, what did you do after you hit that tree and then you called for help?
Well, Mr. Bennett showed up, and then after him, he called the ambulance, and then they showed up, and the police showed up, and they went right to the car.
And is this when you found out about Vanessa?
Yeah, they went over to the car, and they pulled her out of the car, and she wasn't moving. And they put her on a stretcher. And they just pulled a sheet for her head.
Miss Dawson, just have a few more questions to get through. Were you medically examined at any time before or after the accident?
No, I wasn't.
So what happened after the police came?
I spoke to Officer Foster. He was very nice. He asked me what happened, and I told him. And when we were just talking about the accident, Vanessa's mother showed up.
And what did Vanessa's mother, the district attorney, do in regards to her daughter at that point?
She showed up, and the EMTs took her to where Vanessa's body was. And she saw. And then she looked at me, and she started walking towards me, and she just started screaming.
And what was she screaming at you, Miss Dawson?
She just kept demanding that Officer Foster give me a sobriety test. She kept saying that it was my fault, that she was going to make my life a living hell, and that she was going to put me in jail for the rest of my life.
Had anyone mentioned alcohol, intoxication, driving under the influence? Until Miss Dawson, Miss Sullivan, the district attorney, showed up?